Hello guys, my name is Elif. I hope you're all doing well. I want to thank you in advance for taking the time of your day in these hectic times that we're living in to listen to my presentation about cultural tourism. I would really I would be really happy with any feedback you guys have for me, and I wish you a lot of luck with your own presentations. Today I am going to talk about the subject cultural tourism when it's interfered with managing events. So let's take a look at what I prepared for you guys. First of all, I want to look at the definition. What is cultural tourism? The journey of people to specific destinations that offer cultural attractions, including historic sites and artistic and cultural events and shows. If you think about your own country, Sweden, but because we also have a lot of international students in our class, think about your home country, about the cultural events and the historic sites that they have. I'm sure there are a few that you can name from the top of your head, with the aim of acquiring new knowledge and experiences that meet the intellectual needs and individual growth of the traveler. Because it's very nice to go to a really nice beach and have a relaxing vacation, laying on the beach, taking in the sun, sipping on some nice drinks. But a lot of travelers actually have the need to see something that has more of a value to history, or maybe is a historic site or an artistic and cultural show or event or place that really shows the nature and the culture of the country that you're visiting. Because we are so lucky that there are so many different countries and cultures in this world that we can learn from, that we can appreciate, that we can like, that we can love, that we can, as I said, learn from. And as you guys know, globalization made the world smaller, so it's much easier to go to different places. It's much easier to gather a lot of information, but it's also easier to look more like each other. Places can lose their own identification, their own culture because of globalization. So I think cultural tourism is very important to preserve the authenticity of the places you're visiting. Because when there is demand to their specific own culture, it will preserve it instead of that specific culture losing their own uniqueness. And the other definition that I found and quite like and wanted to share with you guys was tourism that values tangible and intangible aspects of the culture of a certain touristic destination, closely linked to the local community, heritage, history, architecture, traditions, arts and crafts, gastronomy, paintings, so arts again, dance, music, social practices, rituals, festive events, which are factors of identity and preserve authenticity. I think it's such a wonderful thing that we have such different cultures all over the world. For example, I have been born and raised in two different cultures at once, actually. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, but my parents are originally from Turkey. So I grew up with the Dutch culture, but I also grew up with the Turkish culture because of the Turkish community that I was in the Netherlands and because of my own family. And this really made me appreciate different cultures because in a way, we all look like each other. We have a way of celebrating things. We have certain things we enjoy. But at the same time, we are also different. And that I think that's the beauty of cultural tourism, to be able to experience all of these things that make us human, that are different from each other, to learn to appreciate and respect other cultures is something that's very important to me and close to me. That's also why I wanted to choose this subject, because, for example, when I was living in the Netherlands, there was quite some racism against Turkish people or minority groups. And I really wish that my classmates or people who made these remarks had the opportunity to visit Turkey and see their real culture and experience it, so they would appreciate it as much as I could. So this is why cultural tourism is actually quite close to me, also because of my brother, because he has traveled all over the world since I was little, and he always brought back souvenirs that were really close to the culture of the country that he visited. For example, when he went to Japan, he brought back some very different kind of Japanese traditional sweets and their traditional chopsticks and their traditional puzzles. So I have always been interested in other cultures, as many of you are, I suppose. Now I want to look at the statistics a little bit together with you. The World Tourism Organization estimates that cultural tourism accounts for 40% of global tourism, and that's actually a very high percentage. And when we look at World Heritage, the World Heritage website describes heritage as: heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on to future generations. So our cultural and natural heritage are both irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration. And when we look at the different heritages, you can see that they have divided them in cultural, natural, and mixed heritages. But something that stood out to me significantly was that in every region, Africa, Arabic countries, Europe, cultural heritages are significantly more than natural or mixed heritages. And especially in Europe, there are a lot of cultural heritages that have been preserved and that get visited quite a lot. The correct number is around 458, if I'm not mistaken. And as you can see on the statistics, and like I said before, Europe has 529 world heritages in total, but most of these are cultural heritages. So we are thinking about countries like Italy, Spain, which have an enormous amount of very beautiful cultural sites from the past that we can visit. And this is actually also the reason why Europe is quite popular when it comes to cultural tourism. A lot of people prefer to go to Europe because it's, first of all, there's a lot of cultural heritage and cultural festivals and sites that they can visit, but it's also relevantly safe because in the European Union there aren't as much political issues when it comes to different countries. So travelers feel quite safe when they are traveling there. And because of the transportation, the infrastructure, of course, it's easier to travel to Europe than to some other countries, especially if you live close. So these are some reasons. And this is the next slide I want to look at with you together. It's about the countries with the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And as you can see, the number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites by country in September in 2018 is, the first one is Italy. We all know how magnificent Italy is when it comes to their World Heritage Sites. They have a total of 54. After that comes China with their very impressive history and culture, of course. Spain, Germany, France, India, Mexico, United Kingdom, Russia, United States, Iran, and Japan. The United States is not listed because they have withdrawn from the organization as by 31st of December in 2008. And when I first saw this graphic, I was not surprised because Italy was the first one, but I was surprised by the other ones because I don't know a lot about. I could imagine that there are a lot of World Heritages at India, but I don't know a lot about the ones in Mexico or Russia or Iran. So I think it will be really nice to explore some of these. And maybe when all of this madness is over, it can be an inspiration to go to these beautiful places. I would love to. And this is another graphic that shows us where World Heritage Sites are under threat. And the most common threats are invasive and non-native species, native or non-native species, climate change, and the effects of tourism and recreation. So the effects of over-tourism, a lot of places can't carry all of the tourists, or climate change, or this one isn't listed yet because this is a chart from 2017, but as of 2020 we are dealing with a pandemic now, and actually all of the World Heritage Sites are not under threat because I think they are having a rest of all the tourists who are visiting, so nature and the old historic places are resting and preserving themselves, but they don't have any income right now from touristic things, so they are actually under a big threat. And the first one is actually the Caribbean, especially the oceans are under a big threat because of ocean pollution, especially in these places. Africa, also because of climate change, but also because of the conflicts they have in their own countries with political leaders. South America, the Arab states, Asia, Oceania, and North America. As you can see, in 2017, these sites were under threat, but Europe wasn't part of them as much. But I think they are under threat, more under threat. All of them are being quite influenced. That's the word what I was looking for. Now I want to talk to you guys about the cultural tourist profiles that we have and how you can actually manage these. So first of all, we have the motivated cultural tourists, and some things that specify or characteristics of these tourists are usually they have a higher educational background, they have a medium to high income that allows them to travel more, and considerable interest in culture and especially different cultures. They are not looking at the world from their little view, they want to see and explore more, and considerable interest in social and environmental issues. So these travelers are also making a point of being more responsible. We also have the incidental cultural tourist, and this is a group that likes to add cultural components to their holiday. However, they have another primary reason for their trip. They may participate in cultural activities that fit their plans. For example, last year I went on a road trip with my family. We went with 2 cars, 8 people, people in total. And we started in Turkey and we went all the way to Slovakia because one of my cousins was getting married in Slovakia actually. So we wanted to be there to celebrate that special day. But we left 1 week earlier in order to be able to visit the cultural sites in every country that we were passing. For example, when we went to Serbia, we went to different cultural places. For example, the Nikolai Tesla Museum. So we did our research, and when we were in Budapest, we visited the parliament and all the other natural and cultural heritages or cultural sites that there were. And I would identify ourselves as incidental cultural tourists because our main primary reason for our trip was to be a part of my cousin's wedding. But we made it a little road trip, so we wanted to stay 1 or 2 nights in the country that we were passing through, and we wanted to rest, but at the same time we also wanted to see these countries and their cultures together as a family. So I would say that we were incidental cultural tourists. But for example, I mentioned my brother before. He loves to travel. He has been traveling for a long time and he is a motivated cultural tourist because he has a considerable interest in the culture of the countries that he's visiting. For example, before he went to Japan, he actually learned the language a little bit and he could read some of the signs. And he knew a lot about the culture beforehand as well. We also have the middle-age group, and this is the largest cultural tourist segment. Many members of this group are motivated cultural tourists. And the older generation. Especially Europe has a relatively large generation of people between 55 and 70 years old, and these are usually people who are retired already. And this generation generally has more time because they are retired or maybe aren't working as much or part-time. And they have more money available than other groups because they have been saving up their whole life or they have their retirement money already. They don't have to look out for their whole family because their kids are grown up now. And cultural holidays are the most popular holidays among this group. Many of these people are experienced travelers who travel at least once a year. For example, when I think of these older generation, I think about my biology teacher that I had in high school. He was very close to his retirement age. So he had planned a trip with his wife and they were going to go on a cruise that was visiting it was called the Antarctic cruise. So it was a three week cruise that was very expensive and they could see the Northern Lights or something from the cruise. And I thought this was very impressive. And as I said, my biology teacher was quite older, so he had traveled quite a lot. And he had saved up some money to go on this cruise, and he told me that his retirement plans were to travel as much as he could with his wife, which I thought was really cute. Now I want to talk about a few European culture events. Of course, there are so many cultural events or so many cultural festivals or so many cultural activities that we can participate because every region, every country has their own culture, but I wanted to limit it to European culture events because Europe is quite popular when it comes to cultural tourism. And I wanted to talk about the few that interest me the most or that I have actually participated at so I can give you guys more information that is true because I've experienced it. So first of all, this is one of the most popular ones. It's the Carnival of Venice. Italy, and it's between the 16th of February and the 5th of March. And if I'm not mistaken, because of the current situation, it was cancelled because the whole of Italy has been social distancing, and since quite some time the whole country is on a lockdown. Sadly, they are going through some hard times right now, so this event was also cancelled, but this is a very romantic and very specific event. You can only see something like this in Venice, and it's a celebration 20 days before Lent, and they celebrate it with these extravagant costumes and these gorgeous masks that they are wearing. So, as I said, this is celebrated in the whole of Venice. It's a very big and popular event that I imagine is quite big and difficult to manage. But as I said, because of the coronavirus pandemic that we are sadly dealing with right now, most of the events that I'm talking about have been cancelled this year. This was one of them, I think. And then St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, and I think we have all seen something about St. Patrick's Day because it doesn't only get celebrated in Ireland, it also gets celebrated in quite many countries all over the world, and it's between the 15th and 19th of March, and it's an official Irish holiday where they are celebrating the passing of St. Patrick, as the name says, and as you can see, they have this leaf that kind of brings luck with the 4 leaves on the plants. I don't know what it's called in English, and the color green is very prominent on this holiday, and especially in the capital city of Ireland, Dublin, it's a very big celebrated holiday. Like they have parades and parties outdoors. It's like almost a festival. People celebrate it themselves at their homes. Bars, clubs are themed with this party, so it's quite a national feast. And then I want to talk a little bit about some events that we have in the Netherlands that are very popular internationally as well. And the first one I want to talk about is King's Day in the Netherlands. And King's Day gets celebrated on the 27th of April. This used to be the 30th of April, when it still was called Queen's Day. We used to celebrate the Queen's birthday on the 30th of April, but as of 2014, if I'm not mistaken, the King took over the Queen, and his birthday is on the 27th of April, so now it gets celebrated at that date, but a lot of international tourists don't know this yet, especially the first year when the date changed. A lot of tourists arrived in the Netherlands, especially Amsterdam, wearing these orange t-shirts with like orange hats in the shape of a crown to celebrate the king's birthday, but they were actually 3 days late because the date has been changed. So that's something that Dutch people laugh about quite a lot. And as I said, it's the celebration of the birthday of the king Willem-Alexander. It gets celebrated throughout the whole of the Netherlands, but especially in Amsterdam, it's quite big, as you can see. They are celebrating on boats on the canals. They are wearing orange because this is the national color of the Netherlands. Children are usually out on the streets with their families selling their second-hand toys or second-hand clothes. So it's like an open air market for a really nice bargain price. Or they are selling self-made cupcakes or self-made food. So it's like a whole festival that's, of course, to celebrate the birthday of the king, but when it comes to, for example, selling your own stuff, that's something you manage yourself. You just go out on the street, put like a little blanket on the street and sell your stuff. On that day, it's legal and nobody says anything about it, and everyone usually does it, especially when they are small, but it's not like specific areas. You can do it wherever you want. And yeah, it's a very nice celebration. If you ever have the chance to be in the Netherlands on King's Day, I would really recommend you to. It's nice for all ages. The other one that I actually want to talk about is the Sinterklaas procession in the Netherlands. And this is on the 5th of December. And this has been celebrated for such a long time in the Netherlands. As you can see, this man, Sinterklaas, he kind of looks similar to Santa Claus, because Dutch people celebrate Sinterklaas and Christmas, but like Sinterklaas is their own national Santa Claus that comes at the 5th of December from Spain. That's how the story goes, on a boat with all of its little helpers called Zwarte Piet. And when you translate that to English, it's Black Pete. And as you can see on the picture, since 2016, this has caused quite an uproar because people said that Black Pete resembled blackface and that it was actually quite racist when it came to people of color. So it has been a huge discussion in the Netherlands because it was quite divided. Half of the Netherlands was like, this is racist, it's blackface, they are painting their face black, they are having these afro hair, very big red lips, and usually they also wear these golden earring hoops. So these are quite prominent characteristics when it comes to people of color. And people especially have a problem with it because they are sort of a slave to Sinterklaas, to the Dutch Santa Claus. He makes them work. And yeah, they are called the mischievous little helpers of the big white man. So a lot of people have been protesting against it, and the other half of the Netherlands was like, this is a celebration for children, we don't mean anything racist with this. Why should you interfere with such a tradition? What's your problem? So it was a very divided and heated discussion. So of course, when you're the organizer of this huge event that gets celebrated by the whole of the Netherlands, at every school, in every town, in every city, Sinterklaas arrives with his beads. How do you solve this discussion? How do you manage this different take on black beads? So, as I said, there had been quite a lot of discussions. Half of the Netherlands, or people who I actually think are quite racist and don't understand that traditions can change over the time, especially if you are hurting some minority groups with your actions, then I think it's really reasonable to change. So they didn't want to scrap out the whole celebration. They just wanted to change some features of Zwarte Piet, of Blackface. For example, they wanted him to color him in colors of the rainbow. So instead of a black face, they would like them to be, purple, orange, red, yellow, whatever color you want. Or the origin, the story behind Black Pete having this black face is because he went down the chimney, and because of all the dirt in the chimney, they got a black face. So people just wanted these little stripes of dirt on their face instead of a fully black painted face. So this has been quite of a discussion in the Netherlands, and the way they managed to change it was, as I said, to color them in different kinds of colors instead of black, or giving them little dirt stripes, and I think they have managed it quite well after such a huge discussion. So at least everyone, the children are happy, the people who felt discriminated against are happy, and the celebration continues every year at the 5th of December, just as this year. And I hope it can continue again. I hope that until that time it's over. And then when we look at event management, there are a few things that are quite important and that we all have to consider and think about. For example, the budget, the site selection, invitations and correspondence, registration, hotel and travel, speakers and sponsors, audio-visual, post-event recap. For example, if we look at this when it comes to the Sinterklaas celebration, their budget is quite big because it's a national holiday and they give out presents to a lot of children. A lot of people are working as Black Pete, Sinterklaas, blah blah blah. And the site selection, as I said, it gets celebrated throughout the whole of Netherlands, but Sinterklaas always arrives at Amsterdam. It's always the same place, and people know especially where he arrives and where to wait for him. It's always on the same day, so this event doesn't need any invitations anymore, but close to the dates, people get reminded that it's almost Sinterklaas, of course, because of the media, television, etc. And they have a lot of sponsors for their events, especially candy, Dutch candy brands. And the post-event recap always gets shown on Dutch television, and it's quite popular. So it's managed by the Dutch government, just like, as you can see, King's Day, because of course it's the official birthday of the king. And the king visits, oh, this is something I wanted to add, I think I forgot. The king visits another country, not another country, of course, another city in the Netherlands every year on King's Day. So he's never in the same city twice, and I think that's quite nice. So everyone gets their chance. And that is actually all I wanted to tell you, talk to you about. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.